Josh Allen was as good as he's ever been in these playoffs. Should Bills fans be encouraged despite the loss to the Chiefs? The sting of an early postseason exit still fresh on the minds of Dak and the boys. Could Dallas have a new head coach next season? Because there's one big name that's beginning to surface. And Jimmy G had his game manager hat on in the divisional round win over the Packers. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Good Tuesday morning, everyone. Whether he wins or not, it was game manager hat. First things first, Chris Broussard up there. You got, where's Kevin? Kevin's down there. You got Nick up there. I still can't get my directions. Hello. Nick, can Niner fans even trust Jimmy Garoppolo on Sunday?
Jenna, I'm not certain, but you know what I am certain about? The Chiefs were down with 13 seconds left, and they won! That happened! Are we leading with that again? Are we still talking about it?
We are not leading with that.
Down with 13 seconds left! Oh, my God!
Not to lead with that. Here's where we are leading. A guy who's no longer playing. Start talking some Tom Brady. The inevitable conversation following a heartbreaking divisional round loss to the Rams, a loss that has the rumor mill spinning. I can sum it up in 2 words. Now what? Could this really be it for the GOAT after 127 years in the league? The 7-time Super Bowl champion talked yesterday on his podcast about life after football. Take a listen.
Football is extremely important in my life, and it means a lot to me. And I care a lot about what we're trying to accomplish as a team, and I care a lot about my teammates. And the biggest difference now that I'm older is I have kids now too, and I care about them a lot as well. They've been my biggest supporters. My wife is my biggest supporter. It pains her to see me get hit out there. And, she deserves what she needs from me as a husband, and my kids deserve what they need from me as a dad. I'm going to spend some time with them and give them what they need, because they've really been giving me what I need the last 6 months to do what I love to do. And, I said this a few years ago, it's what relationships are all about. It's not always what I want. It's what we want as a family. And, I'm going to spend a lot of time with them and, figure out in the future what's next.
All right, Chris Broussard, what do you think? Should Tom Brady retire?
Well, look, I think he brought in his family, and I think obviously it's got to make the right decision or what's best for his family. Now, I don't know what it's like to be a football player during the 6 months of the season. He's described it, I think even in this podcast, as wall-to-wall football for 6 months. So during those 6 months, is he able to spend any quality time with his kids or not? Like, if he's not spending any quality time with his kids during those 6 months, then I think that's something he has to seriously look at, because they're getting older. 14, 12, and 9 are their ages. So I think that's something he has to seriously consider. But that's up to him and his wife, Giselle. From a football perspective, I think Tom Brady wants to play. I think his competitive juices and fire are still raging hot. But I think he only wants to play for a team that can legitimately compete for a Super Bowl. And that's how it should be at this stage of his career. So I think he's going to sit back and should sit back and see what Tampa does. They got a lot of guys they could lose. Chris Godwin, Ndamukong Suh, Gronk, Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones, Ryan Jensen, the list goes on and on.
Tom Brady.
If they can't bring back a competitive football team, not just competitive, but one that we look at and say they got a chance to win the Super Bowl, then I don't think he should play. I don't think anybody, even maybe Brady haters, don't want to see him look like a run-of-the-mill quarterback on an 8-9 team that doesn't make the playoffs. I don't think any of us want to see that. And I'll say this, Nick, as somebody that loves watching Brady play, especially with Tampa, where he's throwing the ball a lot more. I love watching him play there. I don't think he has much to gain by playing anymore outside of fueling his own individual desires, which is important.
And
right? That's important. I'm not belittling that. Right. And that's legit. But if he wins another Super Bowl, okay, that's great.
No.
But the legacy is like ridiculous.
The legacy
already.
is as cemented
it doesn't add much
as
more
anything
to it.
could be. Correct. It's not about numbers. It's not about it's about what he wants. And Listen, I think Tom Brady should do what he wants. And I know he said, it's not about what I want. It's about what we want. Tom's 44 years old. We all have families here. We all have kids. We all have spouses. Tom Brady, whenever he retires, is going to retire younger than, 99.9% of people who ever live. He already has a job that, while incredibly demanding 7 months a year and somewhat demanding the other 5 months, gives you more time with your family than the vast majority of jobs in America, certainly the vast majority of high demanding, high compensating jobs. And I don't like when athletes feel pressure to stop what they love, what has made them who they are, because you're like, my kids are gonna. Your kids will understand. Your kids, even if in the moment they're like, I wish we had more time with dad. You know what? When they get older and they have a passion and they have something they love, they will understand. And so there is the element of football specifically where you get hit. But he's not like a absentee father. He's around. You have February to July where you have minimal commitments. Wilds. I just think Tom set a goal. I want to play till I'm 45. He's 1 year away. And now I feel like he's being pressured by those he really loves and cares about to stop. If he wants to play, he should play. Because it's what he wants to do, Wilds.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'll push back on this a little bit about kids understanding. I'm not going to try to figure out or project what Tom Brady's kids are thinking. But I will say that in Seth Wickersham's book, a big part of who Tom Brady is his relationship with his father. There's the famous Super Bowl press conference when a little kid reporter asks who his hero is. He says, my father. And in Seth's book, Tom Brady's relationship with his father made Tom Brady who he is, Nick. So I think that's sort of an unsaid kind of subtext here, that Tom Brady wouldn't be where he was without the relationship and the time that he had with his dad, whether they're out there throwing the football or they're out there golfing. They're very, very tight. So I think that weighs heavily on him. So I will, and I'm a father too, and I think I have the solution for this, Broussard, because family is paramount. And I think if Tom Brady is on the fence one way or the other, I think my kids, Broussard, can offer a little bit of life lesson. I am going to volunteer to send my kids down with their Nintendo Switches and their iPads down to Tampa Bay so Tom Brady can spend some time with them and try to figure that out. See how that's going. Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, I told you, iPad off. I said it 15 minutes ago. So maybe Tom Brady can have some time with my kids, and then maybe that will tilt the scales a little bit, and I think he will end up playing next year, Broussard.
Yeah, look, Wiles, I think whether or not he plays, he's talking about the family. But let's keep it real. He's brought up his family for several years when he's thought about, retiring and moving on from New England and things like that. So I do think, Nick, the final decision is going to be, how good are the Buccaneers? I definitely don't see him going to play for another team, a third team. And
start that up.
I just think, I don't know how much of the stomach he'll have for going back to the Buccaneers if they're not any good. Yeah. I mean, not if
I have a theory.
He doesn't want to go back to his final year in New England.
Correct.
He doesn't want to go back to his final year in New
England. Where
you
squeak into the playoffs and
you don't have the weapons.
He wants to be contending. And by the way, they were contending this year. They dealt with some injuries late. They were the 2 seed. It's not like this Bucs team, you believed and I'm not taking a shot, they could make the Super Bowl. A lot of people did. Right. But I do have one theory here. And even if this isn't what Tom's doing, this is maybe the best piece of advice I could ever give on this show for men and women in relationships. I think Tom I think he intentionally said a few months ago, I could play till I'm 50. So playing till he's 45 seems like a win for Giselle and the kids. This is a version of, hey, honey,
I like it.
Guess what? Bachelor party in Amsterdam this year. What? Amsterdam, okay, we'll just do Vegas. She's like, okay, good. This is what I do about 3 times a year. Danielle, I lost $20,000 on football this weekend. $20,000. No, I'm kidding. Just $3,000. And all of a sudden, she's like, oh, okay, not that bad. You're fine. It's like, no, that's actually awful. This is a great, the setting the bad expectations so the less bad result is a win. I think that's what Tom was doing. I'll play till I'm 50. Okay, just 45. Just 45, honey. You win again. I think that's what he's doing. Heady play.
It's a great
Heady
advice.
play, Tommy.
It's a very heady play, and I think we can all contribute some examples, some of which not suitable for TV. Can we talk Jimmy G? Jimmy G's not retiring. Can Niners fans trust him to pull off the upset Sunday in the NFC title game? We're talking some Garoppolo next. First things first.
Yeah.
February 6th,
Clash
a
at the
storied
Coliseum.
venue. It's seen just about everything. That's the one, Clash at the Coliseum, the Los Angeles Coliseum, the very first Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum, Sunday, February 6th. You know where you can watch this, only on Fox. All right, we're back here talking Jimmy G this morning. So
Look at
Jimmy
this guy.
Garoppolo, guys, has the Niners 60 minutes away from their second Super Bowl in 3 seasons. But if we're being honest,
Oh, God.
and let's face it, that is our mantra here, only honesty. Jimmy G wasn't great in the win over the
God.
Packers. But as he does time and time again, Wright Wilds, the guy finds a
does
way
is
to win. Except,
great.
listen, against Green Bay, he didn't do it without scoring an offensive touchdown. But a win is a win.
God.
It didn't stop George Kittle from defending his quarterback yesterday.
Jimmy G, I mean, you can't say enough about that guy. The that he takes, excuse my language, but he just can consistently just people try to pull him down, and all he does is try to deliver, and he leads this team. Yeah, he's the sense of calm in the huddle. He's the sense of calm in the storm, and he allows us to play football at a high level.
Oh,
I love
the
it.
old sunglasses
Yes,
indoors.
George.
We have been talking about this all season. Jimmy G, do we trust him? Nick, I'm going to ask you, did winning Saturday finally make you a Garoppolo believer?
Of course not. And you said yes, George.
What?
Wilds. But I think George Kittle is the exact. I love that quote because let's remember. Let's just think about how far this relationship has fallen. 2 years ago, George Kittle is literally wearing Jimmy G t-shirts. You remember that? He's like, oh my God,
Of course.
this is my guy. I love him. I know Wilds. Listen, we all have to admit our biases here. Wilds has a decided bias towards fellow members of the Handsome Men's Club, so he's always going to love Jimmy G. So we just need to put that out there. George Kittle got invited to the Handsome Men's Club and then turned it down. He said, I don't need it. Just look at me. I agree. So he is not as biased. But I love this quote. He doesn't say people try to pull Jimmy down and Jimmy delivers. He's gone from wearing his T-shirt to being like, he's trying. Listen, the guy tries. Can you ask for more than he tries to deliver?
Yeah.
Now, does he deliver? No. Is it successful? No. Are we terrified on a snap-by-snap basis? Of course, but he's trying. Guys, he's trying. Listen, if this weekend's game was not finally evidence that you must put to rest that all quarterback wins matter, then I don't know what to tell you. Here's the thing. All great quarterbacks win. But winning does not make you a great quarterback. Does not even necessarily make you a good quarterback. So I believe, Broussard, that the Niners absolutely unequivocally must, because 13 is not going to be enough to beat the Rams, need to be ready to have a Trey Lance package on Sunday. To have Trey Lance involved, to throw another wrinkle at Green Bay, not only in the running game, but so if Jimmy G starts pressing the interception button as he tried to, against the Rams, my apologies. He starts pressing the interception button as he tried to and successfully did once. This is all within 5 pass attempts. Look at this. Troy Aikman almost started crying. Troy, the only reason he didn't, Broussard, was because his tears were frozen in his eyeballs. Come on, man. Jimmy G tried to give this game away, and the Packers wouldn't let him.
First of all, for the purposes of this segment, because I want to bring clarity to George Kittle's quote. Nick, during this segment, you're going to be referred to as people. Because Kittles was talking about you, but you're people. So people, that's what I'm going to call you for this segment, because people give Jimmy G all this mess, all right? But Jimmy G, look, Nick, I'm not saying he's not a great quarterback. All I'm saying is he can win games. He's a good quarterback. I will say that. And I'll admit,
he's not.
Watching Jimmy G is an anxiety-riddled experience. Because I was obviously watching that game, and I'm sitting there like, my goodness, it could have been like 3 pick sixes, right? Those throws. But they weren't. And your Trey Lance suggestion, Nick, stop it. Should they really go into this game thinking, you know what? We can't beat a team that we've beaten 6 straight times with just Jimmy G. We got to get Trey Lance involved. They pounded the Rams earlier in the season. 31-10, I believe, was the final. And Jimmy G threw 2 touchdowns, no picks. All right, they do not have to put anything together for Trey Lance. You go into this game following Jimmy G. He's gotten you to a Super Bowl, and you glossed over some of the things Kittle said. What did he say in that huddle? He gets us ready. He gets us going. He galvanizes us. I'm paraphrasing. But we believe, calms us down. They believe in Jimmy G, Nick. And that's huge.
Right.
They believe that when he's the starting quarterback, that they can win a game against anybody. Because here's why. They know they were 1-10 when Jimmy G got there and then won their next 5 games. They know Jimmy G has led them to a Super Bowl, or at least gotten them to a Super Bowl. They know Jimmy G led to comeback wins over Cincinnati and the Rams. They know he led to 2 victories over this Rams team.
He's a
this
force
year.
multiplier, Nick.
They know Jimmy G wins no matter what, Nick.
He
doesn't have to be Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't have to be Tom Brady. They can win because they have enough other stuff around him. And he's a leader and has the intangibles that get this team going.
I'm starting to get fired up. I'm believing in Jimmy G even more. Here's the other thing. The Rams can't disrupt the passing attack if there is no passing attack. Put that one in your pipe and smoke it, Nick. How are the Rams? What's Aaron Donald going to do to Jimmy G? Get him to not throw? Well, we're not planning on throwing that much anyways. So have some of that. We flipped it on you guys. We're stick it to you guys. Here's the other thing about Jimmy G. What really bothers me. This bothers me the most. This bothers me the most. Early in the year, when there was all the Trey Lance talk, people were on television saying, Jimmy G, you can't win with Jimmy G. I was like, huh? You literally got to the Super Bowl with Jimmy G. And I think, this is a prediction, and I don't think the 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl. But if they did, there would be people on television saying, you know what? Jimmy G can't win a Super Bowl the day after he won the Super Bowl. I guarantee it. People,
Trent
he'd be holding a trophy in the toolbox and can't win a Super Bowl.
Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl. Getting to a Super Bowl
for him.
does not mean you're good.
Right.
Jared Goff got to a Super Bowl.
Means you're in the Super Bowl.
Nick Foles won a Super Bowl. Nick Foles won a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Let me ask you a question. Can you win a Super Bowl with Nick Foles?
What is the goal?
Can you? No.
What is the goal? To win the Super Bowl.
Okay, well,
that's
then,
the goal. If he gets them there, then what's the problem? He doesn't have to throw for 300 yards.
The goal is winning, right? That's what you're getting at, correct? So you would say thus far, both of you would agree then with this very simple statement. In this postseason, Jimmy G has been better than Josh Allen. We can show the numbers. The numbers are unequivocal. Jimmy G has the only thing that matters. Show it. Show us. No. That, in fact, postseason career. I know one guy's got 14 touchdowns, 1 pick, 107 rating, but all that matters is that top line, right, boys? Right? All that matters is the wins. Jimmy G has accomplished his goal. He's not
this better than Josh.
No, but this weekend, who did their job better? Say it. I want you to say it and see if the gods don't push the words back in your mouth.
Real quick.
Well, you guys tell me the job. I think the job is to play effective quarterbacking. Right. Exactly. I think the job is to play effective quarterback.
Let me ask you this, Nick. Let me ask you this.
You guys think the job is winning.
Question.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you, Nick. Would you rather be this weekend? Would you rather be in Josh Allen's shoes or Jimmy G's? Would you rather be Josh Allen or Jimmy G this weekend?
No, everyone.
No, but I'm asking you.
I think Jimmy G has of course I'd rather be Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G has the best job in sports. You're surrounded by all these people who carry you, and then half the media praises you when you fail. Like, it's an unbelievable gig. It's the greatest gig imaginable.
They're 8-28. I hate to bring it up again. 8-28 without him, but they're carrying him. But they're carrying him. I hate to bring it up.
Yes, they are.
It's like, what was that movie? That's all I need. 6-0.
No, it's like the way Austin Powers solves mysteries. It just sort of happens. You don't really know how he does it. We got to move on and talk about Dak. Yeah, just think about it. Sit on it. Talk some Cowboys. I've waited a long time to say it. Is there going to be a new head coach in Dallas? Okay, just roll a break. I thought
that
it was a good line
the funniest moment in the history of the show.
Back to the NFL. Oh, this is going to be a good segment. You know, for all but 4 NFL teams now, the offseason is upon us. For many of them, big questions are looming, like for the Saints. That guy, Sean Payton, has yet to commit. Amid the rumors, he was reportedly back at the team facility yesterday after a week of vacation. Saints owner Gail Benson addressed the status of their head coach. Here's what she had to say.
You know, Sean, we don't know. You know, who knows? We'll find out soon enough, I guess. I don't think any of us know, but he'll let us know soon enough.
Well, we got a lot of information out of that soundbite. This comes on the heels of Cowboys owner Jerry Jones being non-committal. Well, she doesn't know, and we don't know. No one knows. Who knows about what's happening? I don't. On the heels of Cowboys owner Jerry Jones being non-committal about bringing Mike McCarthy back in a recent radio interview. So let us make this into a topic here. Broussard, so much drama, so little time to figure it out. Should the Cowboys make a run at Sean Payton to replace Mike McCarthy?
Well, you guys know that last week I pushed back on Nick wanting to fire Mike McCarthy. But if I could get Sean Payton,
you're coming around.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm doing. Yeah. For Sean Payton, I wouldn't. Look, Sean Payton is proven. You know what you're getting with him. You're going to get a great coach. You're going to get a guy that is going to be great with Dak Prescott. He's just what the doctor ordered. And a guy that Jerry loves. So that's a no-brainer. Now, you go out and hire an offensive or defensive coordinator that you don't know about as a head coach, then you're kind of rolling the dice. At least you know with McCarthy, you got a guy that won a Super Bowl. You got a guy that led you to 12 wins this year. And Nick, I was last week, someone in Dallas, a media member who I know who's close to the team, texted me that Jerry won't fire McCarthy until he can hire Sean Payton. So what I think could happen, guys, a lot of people are looking at this as Payton might take a mini retirement. Like sit out, because I believe he's got 3 years left on his deal with New Orleans. But if he sits out 1 year, presumably that contract becomes void. And then next year you could hire Sean Payton. So keep McCarthy 1 more year, like I said. And then if you don't get where you want to go next year, then you hire Sean Payton and go from there, Nick.
Yeah. Well, no risk in throwing a year away. By the way, whenever Broussard alludes to sources, I play a game in my head where I see if I can figure it out. I'd put 500 on Clarence Hill. I think Clarence Hill's the person. You tell me later if I'm right, Broussard.
Oh,
yeah, not Clarence Hill. Damn.
All right.
No, okay, you told me I'm wrong.
But it wasn't Clarence anyway. Okay. It wasn't Clarence.
All right, so here's the deal. So the Cowboys, I try to learn as much as I can about the league as a whole from each individual postseason. And I think Wilds, we are seeing a very interesting trend in this postseason, which is playing in an awful division hurts you. So who are the 3 teams that have been the biggest playoff disappointments? They all lost at home. They all lost their first playoff game. Dallas, Green Bay, Tennessee. NFC East, AFC South, NFC North, 3 worst divisions in football. Meanwhile, the 4 remaining teams come from, without question, the 3 best divisions in football. The NFC West is the best division by a mile, 2 teams standing. The AFC West had 2 playoff teams, another, come down to the final little play of the regular season. Second best division, the Chiefs are standing, and then the Bengals out of the AFC North. We have to do with the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Browns. No awful team. And you'd say, oh, what about the team that came the closest to being here, the Bills? AFC East was actually, aside from the Jets, competitive this year. So here's why I bring this up. That's further evidence that you need to make a change at Mike McCarthy, because this was the exact problem he had in Green Bay. Awful division, win it early, team's not ready come the postseason. That's exactly what happened to the Packers. You didn't have any real push. Meanwhile, Sean Payton has had to fight tooth and nail for that division for the last decade. It's been different teams. It's like, oh my God, Cam Newton's the MVP. I got to deal with him. Oh my God, Matt Ryan's the MVP. I got to deal with him. Oh my God, Tom Brady's here now. I got to deal with him. So when those Saints teams, while they never made a Super Bowl after the first one, they weren't regularly going one and done. They dealt with the Minneapolis Miracle. They dealt with the terrible call against the Rams, dealt with some bad luck. But those teams were sharp. And while I might disagree with some of Sean Payton's methods, most notably trying to run up the score and maybe ending Michael Thomas's career, which is a story we just have decided not to talk about as a media, hadn't played in 2 years basically, he's an obviously great head coach. If you can replace Mike McCarthy with Sean Payton, you do anything and everything you can do it, including openly wooing him. What's McCarthy going to do? Right. Quit and protest? Fine. Good for us. You make it. I think Jerry, on his next interview, should say we would love to have him. Sean knows it. Pay the tampering fine if there is one. Do everything you can to get Sean Payton, because running it back is not going to change your results at all, Wilds.
Okay, so I'll stay with you, Nick. Don't you think it's weird that we haven't heard any sort of murmurs from Cowboys players that Mike McCarthy's not the guy? Every other coach that's been fired, you hear a little bit of rumblings, but it seems to me that Dak Prescott really likes Mike McCarthy. If Dak Prescott wanted Mike McCarthy out, I feel like we would have heard about it. So wouldn't you take the players', feelings seems too basic of a word, but their advice that they're not clamoring for a change in head coach? In fact, Dak seems to really like Mike McCarthy, and if I was Jerry Jones, that would go a long way with me.
Yeah, except when you have an underachieving organization, sometimes everyone liking the boss is the problem. Sometimes you need a boss, people that rub people the wrong way. Sometimes you need a boss that instills some fear. Mike McCarthy ain't that. So the fact that the Cowboys might like him, to me, is not necessarily a positive sign. It's not necessarily a negative sign, but I'm going to call that neutral. I also think we tend to, Broussard, hear these postmortems when they're actually postmortems. I wasn't hearing, there's not a lot of, unless things get as bad as it was for Urban and Jacksonville, it's very rare you hear before a coach has been fired, oh my God, it's a disaster here. Even the Giants were keeping on a happy face with Joe Judge. And I assume there'll be a 4,000-word ESPN The Magazine piece at some point about what a disaster that was at some point. But I don't think you're going to hear a lot of that while the guy's still there when they did just win the division.
Well, but you do hear quotes, we just didn't get it done at the end of the game. We got to manage the clock better. Little things like that point to the head coach. And I agree with Wilds, Nick, and I think you understand this too. Players do like Mike McCarthy. Now, we might look at his motivational tactics as corny, but they seem to resonate with the players. And most ex-players we have on this show also like Mike McCarthy. So that goes a long way. I think that is important. And why I wouldn't just fire him to fire him. I would only fire him if I'm getting Sean Payton. But here's the thing, Wilds, I'll say to you, because you hit me with this last week. When Golden State moved on from Mark Jackson to Steve Kerr, none other than Steph Curry was so totally in Mark Jackson's corner. Loved Mark Jackson. Now, there were other players and obviously people in the organization that didn't want Mark there, but your number one guy, Steph Curry, loved him. And so they moved on.
And
Steph was
Giannis
a
and Jay
professional,
Kidd.
and the rest is history. Right, great.
What about
exactly.
Giannis and Jay Kidd?
So
same thing.
And
a
guy
you
that's
needed
a
a guy.
professional. Yep, Dak will be professional. So will the rest of those guys. They respect Sean Payton, so they'll move on gladly if they have to, if he's brought in.
Remember, Jerry Jones isn't so quick to pull the trigger on a head coach. Jason Garrett was there forever. Time for Nick to hand out NBA medals now. Knicks, Cavs last night in Cleveland. Kevin Love had a solid night off the bench. Team high 20 points, made 6 shots, all from 3 in a win over New York. Oh, New York lost. How about that? No medal, though, on the night for K-Love. Nick, which 3 guys turned in podium-worthy performances last night?
Jenna, by the way, at this point, I've gone from rooting for a Kevin Love buyout to thinking Kevin Love for Russell Westbrook, straight up. Can we do that? Who says no? All right, bronze medal. Devin Booker. Sorry, listen, I like Kevin Love with LeBron. No, I don't hate it at all. Let's think about it. Devin Booker, 33-7 in a win over Wild's beloved Utah Jazz. All the Phoenix Suns do is continually win. Nobody cares. What's the media bias against Phoenix? We'll talk about that in the post-show meeting. Silver medal, Vucevic. Okay, listen. The Bulls are not going to win the East. They're not going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. But there's still a good story, America. And that was a nice win. By the way, if you had Chicago minus 1.5, I'd consider a class action lawsuit against the Thunder. Down 4, 0.9 left. Call timeout. What play are you drawing up other than the cost me hundreds of dollars play? What are you doing? Okay, Bulls win. Good job.
Terry Johnson.
Gold medal. CP3. Hey, Broussard. I think Joel Embiid's the MVP right now. But if he falters or misses time, can you please start the drumbeat for Chris Paul Lifetime Achievement MVP? Please? 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 There it is. Chris Paul, 27.
Nick, no. Last year was his shot, not this year.
You tried.
No.
Yeah.
I won't do it.
All right, fine. There's the
sorry.
medals.
All right, we're going to stay in the NBA.
But he's playing great.
Trade deadline is looming. So should the Sixers wait until the summer to deal Ben Simmons for James Harden? Tell you why we're asking next. First things first. Fox Bet Super 6 wants the nation to stack the cash again for the NFC Championship game on Fox last week. The jackpot reached over $325,000, and they want to make it even higher this week. Scan the QR code and enter for your free chance to win. Oh, the more people who enter, the bigger the jackpot gets. More value, more safe. Here we go. Talk some basketball. NBA trade deadline just over 2 weeks away. The big question, will Ben Simmons get moved? According to a report out yesterday from The Athletic, the answer is not yet. Sixers preferring to wait until the summer to deal Simmons for James Harden or another superstar rather than take one of the current offers on the table. But you have to wonder if waiting until the summer would be wasting what Joel Embiid is doing right now, averaging 28, 10, and 4 on 35% shooting from 3. Only that guy, Nick, Larry Legend, Larry Bird, matching that line, and he took home MVP honors that year. So, skinny Larry Bird. Chris Broussard, probably keto. Would it be a mistake for the Sixers to wait until the offseason to deal Ben Simmons?
Absolutely not, Jen. And I've been saying this for weeks on The Odd Couple. This is exactly what Philly should do unless somebody blows you away with a great offer. Don't make a trade just to make a trade, just to get rid of a problem, because guess what? The worst of the Ben Simmons saga is over. I mean, of course, you never say never, but it looks like the worst of his is over. He's already shown up to practice and refused to go in and compete. He's already, told the team and publicly he's not mentally ready to play for the Sixers. So the worst of it has happened. You've already played half the season without him. You can sit it out. You can play it out the rest of the year unless you get a great deal. And Nick, I am beginning to think that James Harden to Philadelphia, it could happen. Because if I'm James Harden, and when he didn't sign his contract extension earlier in the year, and he said, I'm just leaving my options open and all that, I thought he'll be back in Brooklyn. But if I'm James Harden and say it doesn't end well this year for Brooklyn, second round, conference finals, whatever, I got to look at it and say, KD got hurt again. Kyrie's still not vaccinated. And who knows when that New York law will change. This could play into next season where Kyrie's only playing part-time. So if I'm James Harden, I'm looking at Joel Embiid, who is just playing awesome. And I agree with you, Nick, MVP right now. I'm looking at him and saying, let me go there. We know he's got a good relationship with Daryl Morey, and they would be monsters. So, yeah, Daryl Morey should absolutely wait until the offseason, again, unless somebody blows him away with a deal. And I'll throw another thing at you, Nick. Damian Lillard. If you look at Portland.
Of course.
Portland's struggling 6 games under 500 with Chauncey Billups, right? And here's the thing. They clearly need a rebuild in Portland. Chauncey wants a defensive team, all that. And Anthony Simons, the young kid, right? Anthony Simons has averaged 25 and 7 assists over the last 10 games. And they're 7-3 without Damian Lillard. I'm not going to say expendable because Damian, he's not going to be Damian Lillard, but that is showing you, let's build around Anthony Simons and maybe go get Ben Simmons and send Damian to Philadelphia. So, and then if you don't get that Bradley Bills out there, they're struggling. They're the 10th seed again in Washington. They need to move on. So a lot of options.
So here's the thing, Wilds. People are going to put this as, if you don't trade Ben this year, you're sacrificing a year of Joel's prime. And to a degree, that can be true. But here's what's also true. If you trade Ben Simmons for the wrong player or the wrong package, you might be sacrificing the rest of Joel Embiid's prime. Right?
Fair.
Like, I think Joel is the MVP. Right. I don't think he can win a one-man championship. I think Daryl will do a good job putting pieces around him. But this is... the Sixers are obviously not in an enviable position. But if the answer is, not give ourselves the best chance to win this year, but give ourselves an even greater chance to win the next 3 years, then obviously you walk through that door. Here's the other thing that no one has reported, but I know to be true. And you guys can say this is silly. I know this is true. Philly is still holding out hope that if the deadline passes and a trade is not made, that Ben will play at some point this year. Now, maybe he won't, but nobody, I think, thought Ben Simmons, and this part I don't know, but I'm speculating, I don't think Ben ever thought, I'm going to skip a year of basketball. I don't think Ben thought, I'm going to skip 10 games of basketball. I think Ben thought, I'm going to be traded in the offseason. And then he wasn't. And then it's like, okay, December 15th, the first chance when the whole league, when all those guys you signed this offseason are available, then I'll be traded. There's an element of the old cliche of, I'll turn this car around, and the kids keep acting up, and they never stop acting up. If the dad actually does turn the car around, it's like, wait, we're really going home? Oh, okay, well then maybe I need to straighten up. There's an element of, who is going to blink? Now, I don't think Ben will show back up. But I don't think Philly looks at it as, if we don't make the trade, we are definitely getting nothing out of the Ben Simmons player or asset this year. So for all those reasons, and because Daryl Morey adores James Harden, I think there's a lot of incentive for them to wait.
Yeah, so I agree with you, but I want to dig into the Ben Simmons playing this year because I think that's fascinating. Broussard, I don't think that the Philly fans would be that, upset seeing Ben back on the floor. And I know there is a lot of oh, no, didn't you see the viral video of his jersey burning? And don't you remember they threw a snowball at Santa Claus? Throw all that in the garbage. Time heals, 1. 2, you are one solid, smartly engineered press conference away from getting everybody on your side.
Right.
That's all it takes. All Philadelphia cares about is winning basketball games. And if Ben Simmons came out And you would need professional PR people involved here. But if Ben Simmons came out with some sort of statement like this, you know what, guys? I was in a really bad headspace. I appreciate your patience. I let you down. But right now, I thought I was going to get traded. I'm not. I'm going to give 110%. I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm going to work my tail off to try to bring a championship to Philadelphia because that's what you deserve. People around the NBA would not be like, this guy. I think the tide has turned on Ben in a good way. I think, like, you know what? He was a sympathetic figure, handled a little funky, but I think we're past it. I think I would love to see Ben for Philadelphia. I would love to see Ben on the court for Ben's sake. And also, if Ben wants to get moved in the offseason, he's got to show that he can still play. This idea that he's going to be traded for Bradley Beal and the Wizards fan base is going to be like, I don't know, what are we getting here? I just hope that he gets back on the floor this year.
I like a lot of what you said, Wilds, and I agree. A great press conference where he said essentially what you said, yes, that would do it. But I was saying that at the beginning of the season. When he first showed back up to Philly, he could have done that press conference and been fine. So, and then you talked about he's got to get back on the court. I don't think he's going to play this year. I don't think he's getting traded by the deadline, and I don't think he's going to be on the court. But the problem with that is if I'm another team, and the Nets would have to agree to a sign and trade for James Harden to go to Philadelphia because they can't sign him outright. They don't have the cap room. If I'm another team looking at Ben Simmons, and I like Ben, I do have to question, this dude was willing to give up a year, smack dab in the middle of his prime, and he's got Joel Embiid as a teammate? Does he really love the game? You know, this guy, where is he at mentally? Last time I saw him on the court a year ago, he wouldn't shoot layups. So I think the more he stays away from playing, the more a team is going to have to wonder, what am I getting? Is he mentally damaged to the point where he's not going to be the player he used to be? So I think that's a real question mark that he's going to have to answer on the court.
So a couple quick things. One is, I think some of the audience might be like, why would the Nets help the Sixers get James Harden? This would only happen if after the year, Harden says, I'm leaving. And because Harden's a free agent after this year if he wants to be. So he could leave and the Nets get nothing, or it could be a sign and trade situation where I'm leaving either way. Yeah. You guys can get back a good player and a tradable asset potentially in Ben Simmons. That's first of all. Second point is, the other reason this report is interesting is if you are one of those teams that wants Ben Simmons and has not been presenting your best offer because you think, well, our offer, even if it's not our best offer, is the best Daryl is going to get, and now you're hearing Daryl might take no offers, well, then that is something to keep in mind as well. Keep in mind, Daryl could have traded for Kyle Lowry this past year and said, no, price too high. We'll stand pat as is when people thought he should do that. Last point is this, Jenna, and there's a little galaxy brain, and I'm not sure I totally believe it. However, has Russell Westbrook's struggle made Ben Simmons' style a little more palatable? What if Ben Simmons, instead 100%. Of the videos of him making jump shots, what if he posted videos of him looking like Russ shooting elbow jumpers? It's like, this is what you guys want? I can do this if you want it. Or I can play great defense and pass the ball like I always have been. Lakers are begging Russ not to shoot. I give you that stuff, but I also play great defense. I said it on the front end. I don't know if I believe that, but I've been thinking about it. Galaxy brain. Did that actually make the way Ben plays a little more acceptable?
It's definitely something to think about. Hey, can we talk about Josh Allen? Do you think Bills fans should be encouraged about Buffalo's future despite the loss to the Chiefs? We'll toss that around next. First things first. First things first, we got three-time Pro Bowler LeVar Arrington with us this morning. Good morning, LeVar. We're talking Josh Allen. You know, it's hard to have a better postseason than Josh Allen did. Shy of the Super Bowl, of course. The Bills quarterback, a 149 passer rating, the highest ever in a single postseason. But again, doesn't change the fact the Bills are headed home. The second straight season the Chiefs ended Buffalo's run at Arrowhead. Allen said Sunday, we got to find a way to be better next year and accomplish what we want to accomplish. Nick, are you worried at all about the Bills' future after the way they lost to the Chiefs?
I think there are 3 reasons, LeVar, to have a pretty high degree of concern, and none of them are about Josh Allen. I announced yesterday retiring the Josh Allen slander. He was outstanding this postseason, answered all the questions that I had, so it's not about Josh Allen. But here's why I'd be concerned. Number 1 is the obvious. I think you're going to lose Dable. And this is one of the unspoken downsides to having even a great head coach if he is on the defensive side of the ball. Is your offense is going to always be designed by a guy who, if he's good enough, is not going to be there for long. So, like, it's something Belichick has dealt with. Luckily, McDaniels came back. But the defensive coach is losing the offensive coordinator that develops a relationship with the quarterback's a real thing. So that's first point. Second point is all the great young quarterbacks are in Josh Allen and the Bills conference. So you have Mahomes, but you also have Burrow who's still playing. You have Lamar, who won an MVP a couple years ago, and you have Justin Herbert. So there's going to be no easy outs. But the last one is the one that's most concerning, and that is, what was the emotional toll of that game Sunday? Wilds made a point all year long, which is 17 of the last 20 Super Bowl losers didn't win a playoff game the next year. And I think a lot of that is because losing a Super Bowl is so emotionally devastating that it's hard to climb back up. I think Sunday was the Bills' Super Bowl. I think going against the team that knocked him out last year, having the game in hand and losing it was as emotionally devastating a loss as you can imagine. And LeVar, the teams that have recently suffered those types of losses did not recover, at least certainly not the next year, maybe not for the next few years. Atlanta, never recover, I would argue. Seattle, the Malcolm Butler play, I would argue, never recovered. Hell, the Bills, the Music City Miracle, they didn't make the playoffs for 18 years after it. It took them a long time to recover from it. So I do think the Jaguars make the AFC Championship game, have it won, and then lose it, never recover. So I think it is going to be harder than expected for us all to get Mahomes, Allen, AFC Championship game part 3 next year, because I think this could be a psychologically very damaging loss for Buffalo.
I'll say there should be cause for concern for the simple fact that you may not only lose an offensive coordinator, you may lose a defensive coordinator. To lose both coordinators in one offseason is, I mean, you got to assume that that's going to be debilitating to the team. Then you also got to take into consideration what their cap is. What they're at $200 million, and they have $8 million left, $208 million, and they still have a hefty group of free agents that are coming up. So one of the biggest challenges that teams have in modern day NFL and in sports in general is this cap issue of being able to keep your team together. That's going to be critical. They'll get a guy back in White, Trey White. They'll get him back from his ACL. They'll get him back from his ACL injury. I believe if they can keep the core nucleus of this group together, they can be competitive for years to come. What's difficult is when you have a good defensive coordinator, you have a good offensive coordinator, and they are being recruited to go to other jobs, there's the possibility that they may not be there. There is the possibility that people may opt out and take money from a different place and think that there's a greener pasture somewhere else. So with all things given, if the Bills come back with the core nucleus of what they've had this year, this is a team that I don't think will have a hangover. I think they'll be better, Brew. I just think that there still has to be some things that fall in place in order to keep the core nucleus, as I said, together in order to build to that next step. But they're right there. I mean, they're one possession away from playing in the AFC Championship game, and I don't know that they lose to Cincinnati in that game. So I think they're closer to being better than they are going in the opposite direction.
Right. LeVar, yeah, you'd hate to lose either the coordinators. Daboll has been huge in Josh Allen's development. Okay, but Nick, stop it. You sound like a Chiefs fan who's trying to convince himself that Buffalo's not going to beat you guys at some point. Because Buffalo's not going away. I'm here to tell you that they are not going away. All right, look, they don't lose any of their good players. None of their top players are free agents, so they should be back. All right, and this team has shown that it is mentally tough. They could have folded if they were going to fold. If they weren't made of the right stuff, they would have folded after that national embarrassment when New England threw the ball 3 times and beat Buffalo at home. Or they may have folded the next week when they're down 24-3 at halftime against the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers. Instead, they manned up and played tremendous football. They looked in the mirror and said, what are we made of? We've been punched in the mouth a few times straight in the last 2 weeks now. What are we made of? And they emerged to play their best football that we've seen in years. And Nick, if they don't respond correctly to this emotional loss, then they're not worth their salt anyway. They weren't nearly as good enough
that's
anyway.
Not fair.
And I can point, even in Buffalo, no, it is fair. Even in Buffalo, they can look back to a team that didn't win it, but Jim Kelly. They went to 4 straight Super Bowls. Did any of those emotional losses make them say, you know what, we're not getting back?
No, that's right. That's right. That's the example, because the Norwood loss is the first one, and they recovered, right? The Norwood was the absolutely unfathomable loss, and then they go to 3 more.
3 times.
So I understand that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but what I am saying is the Wilds. We saw this. I'll go do a different example. I'll use the Rockets with Harden and Chris Paul. They had the NBA version of the Chiefs beat the Warriors with Durant, and they had terrible luck. They had the worst injury at the worst time, and then despite that, they had the worst shooting slump in NBA history, smack dab in the middle of a Game 7 where they were up by 15. The team never recovered. That was a great team that should have won a championship at some point. This is not me trying, and this isn't saying taking a shot at Buffalo. This isn't me trying to speak things into existence. I promise. What I am saying is that when you have, the Bills were a game away from the Super Bowl last year. They're up 9-0 on the Chiefs. The Chiefs then put it on them, and everyone understood the Bills were probably a year away. They then tell the whole world, do interviews about it. Our entire offseason is focused on beating Kansas City. Our entire goal, we are obsessed with that. They beat Kansas City and then lost. That type of stomach, I think they'd have been better off losing 35-3. But to lose that way, it's not like losing to the Patriots on Monday Night Football. The idea that there is not a chance that lingers and that has a long tail of effect, I just think we have a lot of sports history. It's not a guarantee, but I think it is the folks saying, oh, just pencil this in. We'll see this again next year, maybe. Or maybe people are going to say, damn, that, 28-3, the Falcons never got over it, ever. Nobody did. And this wasn't 28-3, but this was tough, man.
Well, look, I hope you're right, because right now, LeVar, I am terrified of Josh Allen. I would feel more comfortable having a poltergeist in my house and the walls bleeding every morning than having to deal with Josh Allen in the AFC East for 20 years. And there's a few reasons. One, it's just pure arm strength. Like 4th and 14, he's probably going to do this. It's just such a rocket of an arm, it feels like he can make every throw. 2, it's obviously the running. And 3 is this. And I think calling people Brady-esque is always a reach, but it did make me think this. When you look at the other awesome performances this weekend, Stafford to Cooper Kupp. Wow, Cooper Kupp won the game. How about Mahomes to Kelsey and Tyreek Hill won the game. And what did Josh Allen do? Stephon Diggs had 3 catches for 7 yards, and Gabriel Davis scored 4 touchdowns. In the regular season, Isaiah McKinney, who makes like $1.5 million, destroyed the Patriots. So that's the third part that I'm like, oh man, this guy's good. The fact that he is taking not superstar receivers, the superstar receiver had a terrible game, but regular guys in turning them into playoff heroes. 4 catches in the playoff and 4 touchdowns in the playoff game is insane. I'm terrified of Josh Allen with or without his coordinators. I think this guy is going to be a threat, and they're probably going to be better next year. I hate to say it. It hurts my Patriots' heart, LeVar.
I agree with you that they will be better. And here's what I'll say to what you said, Nick. The fact that you look at it as maybe a hangover from them losing the way that they did, as a former player, I could tell you right now, I would not be looking at the way they lost that game as if we're not good enough, as if we don't belong. I'm going to work harder.
That's a good point.
Here's what could work against Kansas City in this scenario. Kansas City has come out on top the last 2 seasons. Kansas City has their sights set on Super Bowls. Who are we playing in the Super Bowl? You know who Buffalo has their sights set on?
Kansas City. That's true. That's right.
When you have a singular focus on one particular hurdle to overcome, then the next hurdle becomes very, very important. Until we're able to beat Kansas City, we can't sit here and say we're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. So now we're looking at Kansas City as you have the target on your back, and we're coming for that target, and this team is good enough to do that. They need to beef up a little bit in their coverage. Offensively, they're fine. They would have been fine. Yep. That game came down to a coin flip. A coin toss. Both offenses found a way to get into the end zones. The defenses did not show up the way that they needed to at the end of that game. Otherwise, you would think seemingly Buffalo cruises to a victory in that game. So when you're looking at it from the perspective of pure football, I think that the Buffalo Bills are not only in position to contend and compete in the AFC, they are actually in position to knock off what seemingly is the dynasty of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Take that, right? Good stuff, LeVar. Good perspective. Hey, we got to talk some Jimmy G. You think Niner fans trust him to pull off the upset Sunday in the NFC title game? I mean, after all the guy does is win, right, Kevin Wildes? We're back after this. This comes on the heels of Cowboys owner Jerry Jones being non-committal about bringing Mike McCarthy back in a recent radio interview. Broussard, what do you think? Should Dallas make a run at Sean Payton to replace Mike McCarthy if they can do it?
You guys know that I pushed back on Nick's last week when he suggested McCarthy should be fired. I don't think he should be fired just to fire him. Just to hire an offensive coordinator out there from another team that you really don't know what he's going to be like as a head coach. But if I can get Sean Payton back to Dallas for the first time, 18 years or whatever he was gone, he was our quarterback's coach under Parcells, I'm bringing Sean Payton back. By Mike. Go. And I like Mike McCarthy, obviously. But Sean Payton is a better coach. He's more innovative. He's tremendous with quarterbacks. I think he'd work wonders with Dak Prescott. And I do think the players in Dallas really like McCarthy. But if you bring in Sean Payton, I think they'd be able to move on. I think they respect Payton. They know how good he is, and they would be excited about it. So, yeah, look, Payton, I believe he's got 3 years left on his contract. So I don't know if you can even get him this year. Would it have to be some type of trade? I wouldn't give up too much as far as, players and draft capital. But if I had to money or something like that to get Sean Payton, I'm trying to do it. I think what's more realistic might be that Sean Payton takes a year off, summer tournament, a mini retirement. You keep Mike McCarthy for 1 year next year. And then if you don't get where you want to go, which is the Super Bowl, then you go ahead and you get Sean Payton in there. And I could see that happening maybe more so than Payton going there this season.
I think we all agree, that if Sean Payton said, I'll come be your head coach, you'd fire Mike McCarthy to get him. But Wildes, I think if that's true, that means you should fire Mike McCarthy anyway, because here's the deal. Sean Payton's a good, maybe very good coach. Is Sean Payton one of the 5 best coaches in football? No, he's not. You have Andy Reid clearly and unequivocally at the top of the mountain after him. You probably have Bill Belichick. Then you have Mike Tomlin. I like John Harbaugh a lot. I like Kyle Shanahan. I like Sean McVay. Some people say Sean McDermott. But there's certainly 6, 7 guys better than Sean Payton. Oh, you didn't like the Belichick Reid thing? Okay, flip-flop them. Still,
he's in
both
that
ahead of Sean
conversation.
Payton. So if we're saying you'd fire your coach right now, for the 8th best coach in the NFL, then you probably should fire your coach. Then probably it's not Bill Parcells in his prime who's coming available. It's not Andy Reid coming available. It's a guy who's done a very nice job in New Orleans potentially coming available. This is if you are willing to leave your wife for, whomever, then you're willing to leave your wife. That's the thing. They know that Mike McCarthy's not the guy, Wilds. So I think that this is just more proof positive that there is a ticking expiration date on the Mike McCarthy tenure, which to me speaks to rip the Band-Aid off. Now, yes, it'd be amazing to rip the Band-Aid off and then cauterize the wound with Sean Payton, but even if you can't, I would make this move. Sorry, Jenna, for the graphic nature of it.
Here's why really I would keep Mike McCarthy, Broussard. Is anyone mad at what Dan Quinn has done with that defense? Went from terrible to great? I don't think so. Is anyone mad with Kellen Moore? He's got one of the most innovative offenses. No. Mike McCarthy's job is to motivate the team, to lead the team, and to let those coordinators do their thing. So if I was Jerry Jones and I had my checkbook open, I would try to keep those guys. I'm not trying to upset the apple cart and start fresh with Sean McVay and a brand new staff. I've got a great defensive coordinator that everybody wants to make a head coach. I got a great offensive coordinator who everybody wants to make a head coach. My players like Mike McCarthy, and there seems to be a disconnect, Broussard, and you mentioned it earlier in the show, between how the media views Mike McCarthy and how players view Mike McCarthy. Greg laid it out very simple for us that, the guy, you believe in the guy, he galvanizes the team. I think that's worth something. If anything, if you want to hire somebody, go back on Nick's old suggestion, hire a clock management guru to be in Mike McCarthy's ear so he can further organizationally just lead teams rather than start making decisions on the fly. I think that's fine. I keep Mike McCarthy.
Well, now we're getting into, if McCarthy's there, what do you do? And I agree with you, Wilds. You get somebody to help him with clock management. Because, Nick, we know Andy Reid used to struggle with clock management. And at the end of this game on Sunday, he had 3 timeouts left. That was the game. The fact that he had his timeouts left with 13 seconds to play was the reason they won. And so you can be helped in that area. You can change in that area. So they do not have to just fire Mike McCarthy to fire him. All right, I was a media member friend of mine from Dallas, close to the team, text me last week, Nick, they're not going to fire Mike McCarthy until they can get Sean Payton. And I think that's what's going on. I think Jerry's waiting, being patient, knowing that Sean is not sure if he's going to go back to New Orleans, and he's waiting to see and probably doing some things behind the scenes to see if he can get him to Dallas. And again, if that happens, I'm all good with it. If not, I'm good to go to war with Mike McCarthy again next season.
That's right.
And I'm not, and you guys know, I said I would have fired him midway through the year because we knew the clock management meltdown was coming. But even set that aside, Wilds, I think you are judging Mike McCarthy as a corporate manager, if you will, in a way that you would not necessarily judge corporate managers that you have had or in your own life. I've talked to, I haven't had many jobs outside of media. When I was a youth, I had some lawyers to pay for and I had some things I had to do. I've told you I'd sold steaks. I don't know if I've told you guys. I was a shoe salesman just for feet in Kansas City. And when I got hired, I had the
feet?
greatest manager ever. Just for Feet is the name of the place. There's a basketball hoop inside. It was fun. Doesn't matter, though. But speaking of that basketball hoop and that great manager, we'd clock in, and he would literally play 3-on-3 with us. There'd be people wandering around the store. Why can't I get any service? Because we're all hooping it up. That guy got fired. They brought in a new guy. I hated him. He had to be on time. Your shirt had to be tucked in. Hand to God, this is true. I set the record for most shoe cleaners sold in a day after 3 weeks with the guy. 21 shoe cleaners sold in a day. I didn't like him, but he got the most out of it. I missed my old manager. I never would have complained about him. But we stunk. We weren't any good. It was fun, but we weren't achieving any of our goals. This idea, Wilds, that if everyone likes the boss, he's a good boss. Like, I think you've been a boss before. I think you were able to actually walk that line. I think you were the beloved boss that people wanted to achieve highly for. But sometimes it's the beloved boss because he lets us get away with anything. In practice, he says we're supposed to hand the ball to the fake ref, but we don't really have to do that. That's a pain. What's it really matter? Oh, it cost us our season. Oh, yikes. Like, that happens. I just don't think it's a good case.
Get it. Okay, then fire Sean McDermott while we're at it. Because Sean McDermott butchered the clock as well. And he had the lead. And Dallas did not have the lead, for the record. So I value Mike McCarthy for this, Broussard. I think it's overlooked that he empowers Kellen Moore and stays out of his way and lets him cook up an offense. And he empowers Dan Quinn to fix that defense. And I think that's worth something. That's all. I don't necessarily think because they came up short on a funky play that all of a sudden he's gone. I don't, because Dak was hurt half the year and Zeke's not the guy that we thought he was. Keep Mike McCarthy. Don't start fresh.
And
you're
killing McCarthy.
If you're in the local Kansas City region.
Yeah, relax. He's fine.
Undisputed starts right now. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.